Are we live?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do this. So we're learning about the Beit Habechirah. That's what we're supposed to do this time of the year. And the Rambam, in the special collection of Halacha, which deals specifically with this subject, which is called Beit Habechirah, the chosen home, he tells us that it's a mitzvah saseh, it's a positive mitzvah to make a house for Hashem, a bayis la Hashem. What is the reason for this house? What's the purpose of this house? It's muchon li yis makrivim berkorbanos. The Rambam says that the reason we have to build this house is so that we have an environment, a locale, a place in which we can bring the offerings. In other words, there's a lot of mitzvahs that the Jewish people have, which are basically Mikdash related. We call them korbanot, right? Offerings, temple mitzvahs, like a lot of mitzvahs. In order to do those mitzvahs, you have to have a place to do it in. So the Rambam says the reason of building a Beit Hamikdash is so that we should be able to do these mitzvahs. Now Ramban, interestingly, has a very different approach. Ramban's approach is that it's a place which is lahashrat, a bayit lahashrat hashchina. It's a place where God's presence is able to dwell. That's what people usually think of. Think of a Beit Hamikdash, v'shachanti b'seicham, God dwells amongst them. And the Rambam says, the result of making this holy home is that Hashem's presence is amongst us. However, on a technical level, the reason that we have to do this is in order to have a place to bring korbanos. That God's presence will come. Okay, that's wonderful. That's what we call a fringe benefit. But that's not the mitzvah itself. That's not the purpose of the mitzvah.
What is the definition of the word bechira?
Bechira means choice. Beit Habechirah, the chosen home. And as the Rebbe once explained, Beit Habechirah means there's only one chosen home. You could have many holy homes, but only one chosen home. Now, the Rambam tells us that this special home, which is built for the purpose of being able to perform the special service to Hashem, is chagi in love. We go and we visit this for the festivals, shalosh pama, 3 times a year. And that's the meaning of Asuli Migdash. Very interestingly, the Rambam leaves out the rest of the pasuk which says V'shachanti b'seicham, because from the Rambam's perspective, V'shachanti b'seicham, I will dwell amongst them, is not actually part of the mitzvah. The Rambam tells us, now that we have established what the mitzvah is, the parameters of the mitzvah, the Rambam now talks about the historic evolution of this mitzvah. How did this begin? So it says, first of all, this is clearly spoken of in the Torah with regard to the Mishkan, the tabernacle that was made by Moshe Rabbeinu. Now that was temporary. It was Lefishah. Initially, it was only made for a little while. Unfortunately, the Jewish people sinned, refused to go into Eretz Yisrael, so it was used for 40 years. As it is written, Ki lo yivasam ad ata, he didn't come up until this point, and the pasuk later finishes off, El ha-menucha vel ha-nachala. We'll see menucha refers to a place called Shiloh, where there was a mishkan of sorts, but not permanent. Nachala, inheritance, permanence, this is only in Yerushalayim. The Rambam goes on to tell us that once they came into the Holy Land of Israel, Hamidu HaMishkan beGilgal. The Mishkan was set up at a place called Gilgal, and there it remained for 14 years. This was a temporary situation. Why? Because the land of Israel was not fully conquered, and the land of Israel at that point was not fully divided and dwelt in tribal formation. It took 7 years for us to conquer the land, and 7 years for us to appropriate and apportion the land so that everybody could be in his place. Once that happened, the Jewish people now said, we have our homes arranged, Hashem needs a home. Misham bo l'Shiloh. They came to a place called Shiloh. And over there they built a stone edifice. However, the stone edifice had the curtains, the hangings of the Mishkan spread over it. So we didn't use wood walls anymore, and it was no longer something which could travel, was no longer temporary, it was a stone edifice, stone structure. There was no roof. It stood there for 369 years. It's a long time. 369 years was Mishkan Shiloh stood. When Eli died, then Charav, then it was destroyed. There's a whole story. The Aron was captured. Everything imploded. The whole infrastructure basically crumbled. This is beyond exactly what happened over there, but the structure crumbled. And it was like a destruction. The Philistines did terrible things. This is why Binyamin was crying when he embraced Yosef. He was crying over Yosef's destruction. And Yosef cried for Binyamin. That's Mishkan Shiloh. Mishkan Shiloh was a strong structure, 369 years. It's a huge amount of time.
He wasn't crying about the Chorban Beit Hamikdash first.
Binyamin was crying over Yosef's Chorban, which was in Shiloh, in the territory of Yosef. Yosef was crying over Binyamin. Binyamin is the territory of the Har Moriah. Now from there they came to Nov, and they built a Migdash of sorts over there. When Shmuel Hanavi died, this also was destroyed, and they came to Givon, and in Givon they built a Migdash as well. And from Givon they came to Beit Olamim, to the eternal home, and that's of course in the city of Yerushalayim. The Rambam does not divide the amount, the years. Givon and Nov together, he says, was a sum total of 57 years. Now here's the interesting thing. Although we had these various different iterations of the Mishkan, these various structures, nonetheless the Jewish people were still permitted to bring korbanos during a significant portion of that time. There was something called heter bamas. They were allowed to bring, during chunks of that time, personal private offerings. Once we come to Yerushalayim, private offerings are no longer allowed. Kivan shenivna hamikdash b'Yerushalayim. At this point now, it's prohibited from ever building a Beis Hamikdash ever anywhere else. Up until we got to El Hanachla, till a permanent place, which we didn't know where it was initially. We just knew there was such a place, and we would find it eventually. Until we got there, the Mishkan could be here, Mishkan could be there. There was a little bit of leeway. Once we got to Yerushalayim, there is the permanent location of the Hashem's chosen home, and that's why it's called Beit Habechirah, the one chosen home, the place. And there, the Rambam says, Ein sham bayis l'derei haderis, there is no place for generations, for eternity, ela b'Yerushalayim, only in the city of Yerushalayim, and Ubahara Maria, specifically there on Mount Moriah. As it says, Vayomer David said, Hu Beis Hashem Elokim, this is the house of the Lord, this, not a transient house, this is the house. This is the altar that the offerings will be brought up, and we'll see later, we'll talk about the exact location of the offerings. And we even say Zeis Menuchasi Adead. So this idea of Menucha is connected to Nachla, the resting, the permanent place. Where this is a permanence. So Mishkan is the terminology that's used for a non-permanent sanctuary, for a non-lasting sanctuary. Beis Hamikdash we refer to really only in Yerushalayim.
Can we have multiple Mishkan?
Can we have multiple Mishkanot? One could argue in theory, yes, but of course in practice, no. But the Mishkan could have been in various places. And you could have brought Karbanot individually. But once we come to Yerushalayim, all of this comes to an end. All that grinds to a halt forever, and Yerushalayim remains the permanent location of the Mikdash. The building that Shlomo HaMelech built there, which is what we call the first Beis HaMikdash, this is explained in the Book of Kings. And there is also a discussion of the building that is going to be built. The building is going to be built, which is the third Beis HaMikdash. That's described in the book of Ezekiel. What about the second Beis HaMikdash? Well, the second Beis HaMikdash, they didn't really have instructions. They had third Beis HaMikdash instructions, and they knew first Beis HaMikdash instructions. So what they did is, with the Banu B'mei Ezra, when they built the Beis HaMikdash for the second time, in the days of Ezra, Banuhu Kivinyan Shlomo, they built it like the Beis HaMikdash of Shlomo HaMelech. Actually, many of the foundations were still standing. They had what to build on, what to continue. It wasn't as if there was nothing there. And they did, they added some changes, they modified things by virtue of the verses which are discussed in Yechezkel, which of course will only be fully developed, and it will only happen in its fullness, Meretz Hashem, when the third Beis HaMikdash will be built, B'mehera ubi Ameinu Amen. So now you learned about the mitzvah, and you learned about the historical evolution, the various iterations of over time. And B'ezrat Hashem, tomorrow we will learn about, so what is a Beis HaMikdash? What does it need? Does it need a garage? Does it need a kitchen? We know what a home is. What does a Beis HaMikdash need? Because the Rambam says a Beis HaMikdash is a place for a karbanot. The question is, so what's absolutely necessary for a Beis HaMikdash to function? And that will be B'ezrat Hashem continue tomorrow.
Is the